Noah from Tennessee, who is asking, do you think sexism in the Bible is more harmful or less than the apologists who tried to rationalize it? Noah, go through a little bit what you mean by that.
Well, I've noticed a lot of apologetics will try and get around and reinterpret verses that are very clearly about putting women in an inferior place and try to make it sound like an honorable situation for them. Like one verse, if I remember correctly, roughly says it is glory to a woman to submit to her husband.
It makes you wonder if they're asking us or telling us, right? Like,
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. It's like, is it?
And I didn't know if it was more damaging, the sexism that's inherent, the damage it does, we all see it. But there's an entire group of Christians that try to rewrite it to bring more women into Christianity and spread the creep. Hello. Hold on.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw it on Twitter recently, and I think it was a parody account who has this kind of this trope of pretending to be a Christian and going out there and saying things like, I cheated on my wife and she's come back to me, and she's done the right thing, and it's because she was withholding naughtiness from me. So I was compelled to go out and cheat,
right?
Because it was entirely her fault. But thankfully, she's come back to God, and she's doing the right thing now. So we're a happily married couple again. Now that's a parody account. I'm almost certain of it. But the amount of genuine Christians, the amount of genuine apologists who were responding to that with, we're glad your wife has done the right thing. Amen, brother. And it was amazing to see that kind of amount of, first of all, that they didn't realize it was a parody account. It is almost certainly obvious. And secondly, that they were responding with such vigor to such weird and hateful kind of message, which does come from the Bible itself.
Absolutely. And something else I remember from church is women, a lot of times, especially as you get older in the Baptist church where I grew up, you're separated from the guys for Sunday school every now and then, especially in the high school and college groups. And they would always talk about, it's a woman's job, it's a woman's glory to be there for her husband, to satisfy her husband, to serve her husband. And most of the conversation would always be about how hard it is, about, even when it's difficult, like even when you feel like you don't want to, even when it's really, and I remember thinking, how is this our glory? At least say it's a difficult job, right? But the way that the verses are set up, it's almost as if you should be glad and grateful and do it cheerfully and joyfully. And I really don't see that many people doing it cheerfully and joyfully. They're doing it with a smile on their face that they are told they want to have. It's very interesting. If we actually sat down with some of these women and asked them if it's truly a joy, I wonder how many would agree that it actually is.
Yeah, Noah, what do you
I don't think
about that?
very many.
Yeah.
I don't think very many of them would. I know my grandmother, I tell her she's what Christianity is supposed to be. She's the best of what it can be. And
interesting.
But she's been married twice, and both of them were abusive, and the entire process was her responsibility to stay with them and try and make them better when they wouldn't even accept her help.
Yes, absolutely.
So.
And I will say this. I know that with the soundbite of what I just said, people might say, "Oh, so it's terrible to have a husband or serve a husband." If you're in if you're in a great relationship that's give and take, I love doing things for my partner, and my partner loves doing things for me. And so it's not that the idea of a joyful relationship serving your partner is impossible. It's the rules that then follow in many Christian religions where it's not give and take. It's just give. And that's just your job. And you shouldn't expect anything back. That's where the hard work and the daily effort, it shouldn't be that hard every single day. It should be something that you feel like you're contributing to as opposed to serving, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, a good relationship is both people working to make each other better.
Right, exactly.
It's a great question you've asked, Noah.
Yeah.
The question: do you think sexism in the Bible is more harmful or less than the apologists who try to rationalize it? Because it really, we could say that without those apologists, that sexism, that the Bible is, for want of a better word, a living book. It is something that informs how people live in a living religion. We're not talking about the religion of Zeus. There might be a minority of people who follow it, the neo-pagans who follow it, but for the most part, no one follows Zeus anymore. Nobody follows Zeus's instructions. It is not a living religion. But the Bible is, it's part of a living religion, and it informs. So I think without the apologists there to put forward those words, then that it's in the Bible, I don't think would have too much impact without those people preaching it. We've got plenty of books, we've got plenty of literature which is there, which we have access to, but we don't actually follow. We don't actually hear preached from the pulpit, if you like. We don't hear preached from street corners. We don't hear it informing how people live, and we don't hear it as instructions as how people should live. So I think just the simple fact that it's written down is really neither here nor there. It needs those people who are informed by it to convey that message and interpret it in a certain way to pass it on.
Mm.
I think that's a great point.
It's almost like a chicken and the egg thing when you really think about it. It's like, is it worse to be written because it exists, people preach it and share it? Or is it worse to be preached and shared because just being written isn't that harmful? It's kind of cyclical almost.
Yeah, they do kind of feed on each other.
Yeah, a little bit.
Noah, do you come from a background where you kind of had a religion where there were people doing this, there were preachers doing this and apologists doing it, or is it something you've kind of encountered later?
Most of the adult life in the churches I went to growing up were kind of tucked away, even in my own family. So I'm not entirely sure how many of them, if any, did anything like that. But I'm Southern Baptist Pentecostal background, so fair guess would say at least a few of them.
I feel that.
You mentioned earlier about your grandma being kind of the greatest example of what Christianity should be. How do you think your grandma?
I mean to say, she's charitable. She does her best to, help everybody.
That's how I took what we were saying. Yeah, that's how I interpreted what you were saying. I just wondered, with her being that kind of way, how you think she might react if she came across these apologists and preachers who were kind of putting women down and being overly sexist and putting this kind of view forward that they were saying, this is coming from the Bible, this is how women should be. And how do you think your grandma would react to that if she came across it, being a practicing Christian?
Well, I've had a few tough discussions with her, and I've even gotten her to acknowledge that, like, the Old Testament acknowledges that magic is a thing that exists. I've gotten her to acknowledge that evolution is a thing that exists.
Interesting.
But it seems like, well, she thinks humans were created separate from the evolutionary process. So, but that's neither here nor there. When it comes to the more difficult questions, her response usually defaults to she doesn't understand, but she's seen God's impact on her life, and so will hold to the Bible as the best authority she has.
Got it.
She'll agree sexism is wrong. She'll agree abusive spouses are wrong. But there's something that's not letting her let go of, well, this is kind of in the entire package. Right.
And I appreciate that kind of honesty from Christians when they say, hey, it's not perfect. Hey, there is stuff in here that I'm not a huge fan of, but I also recognize that if it's part of the document, that's just part of how it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that question that you've called in with, Noah. Do you have anything else before we move on?
No, I just thought it would be a good question to preface the episode with. So I
Yeah.
thought I'd give it a shot.
Absolutely.
Great
Yeah,
question.
thank you. And please call back again. Do appreciate it. I really like that question. I genuinely
Yeah.
do think that was a brilliant question.
It was.